All right, we are about to take a journey, a multi-decade journey, really, deep into one of the last unexplored places on Earth. This is the incredible story of the Shawn family, who literally traded a comfortable life for a tent in the Suriname jungle. And it all started with a shocking newspaper headline and a calling that, well, you just have to hear to believe.
Just listen to that for a second. That one sentence tells you everything you need to know about the razor's edge this family was living on. Their survival, it turns out, didn't come down to weapons or some grand strategy. It came down to the simple, disarming presence of their children. It's our first clue that, in this story, the normal rules just don't apply.
So how in the world does a carpenter from St. Petersburg, Florida, end up deep in the Amazon jungle? Well, it all kicks off with a newspaper. It's a moment that, for pretty much anyone else, would have been a warning, a reason to stay away. But for Ivan and Doris Shawn, it sparked something totally different.
Okay, so imagine you're Ivan Shawn, and you see this on the front page. It's horrifying. But for him, something just clicked. Instead of seeing a tragedy, he saw a calling. He read that story, and his first thought was, that's where we need to go. And I mean, that same day, he walked up to his boss, quit his job, and dedicated his family's entire life to a mission just like it.
And look at this. This was not some spur-of-the-moment thing. The commitment was immediate and intense. Ivan absolutely blazed through 4 years of Bible college in just 3. Then both he and his wife Doris went to medical school. They knew they'd need practical skills, so he studied medicine, she studied dentistry. And then, by 1961, with 3 kids under the age of 5, they got on a plane and flew to Suriname.
So they've arrived. But getting there? That was the easy part. Now they had to survive. They were flown 300 miles into the interior, a world with no roads, no stores, no safety nets, totally cut off from everything they'd ever known. Their new life began the second their feet hit the ground.
For the first 9 months, their home was a tent in a tiny clearing they'd cut themselves. Food wasn't something you bought, it was something Ivan had to hunt every single day on a little trail he carved out around their camp, being careful not to wander too far and get lost. The first time he brought back a monkey, Doris had no idea what to do with it, so she just ground it up and made, monkey burgers. And this whole thing was actually sanctioned by the government, who basically gave them a 99-year grant and said, hey, if you can make peace out here, this land is yours.
And you gotta remember, the risks were just constant. We're talking venomous snakes, jaguars, you name it. Their family back home was absolutely horrified. One of their uncles was so furious they'd taken the kids into this that he vowed to never speak to them again. So, while the parents are grappling with these life and death dangers, what was it like for the kids?
And there's the twist. For the Shawn boys, the jungle wasn't terrifying. It was a playground, an absolute paradise. They were actually trained by local tribesmen how to hunt and fish, and they got so good at it that they ended up providing most of the food for the family. For them, it was heaven. Okay, so step 1, survival. They're managing that. But now they hit a whole new wall, communication. They're surrounded by people, but they can't understand a single word. They literally have to learn unwritten languages from zero, just by watching and listening.
At first, it was really confusing. One person would walk up and greet them with umaga, and the very next person would say wepa. They couldn't figure it out. But then they noticed a tiny, tiny detail, the haircuts. If a person had a single bang cut across their forehead, they said umaga. If they had 2 bangs, they said wepa. That little observation was the breakthrough. It was the first clue they were living among 2 completely different tribes, the Wanana and the Trio.
But even as they start picking up the spoken languages, they run into an even bigger problem. The whole idea of reading and writing was totally alien. It just didn't exist. So think about that. How do you share complex ideas? How do you leave a simple message for someone when the concept of words on paper is completely meaningless?
This right here, this is a moment of pure genius that changed everything. A local man has a bad toothache and needs to see Doris, but he's worried she won't understand his language. So Ivan writes a note and brilliantly tells the man, I put my tongue on this paper. The man takes the note to Doris. She reads it and immediately gets her dental tools ready. He is absolutely blown away. He asks, how did you know? And she says, the paper told me. Well, word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, writing wasn't some strange thing. It was magic. And everybody, from the little kids to the oldest village elders, wanted to learn how to put their tongue on paper. And just like that, a school was born.
So now that they could communicate on a deeper level, the Shawns really began to understand the spiritual world of the tribes. And what they discovered was a worldview that was defined, more than anything else, by constant, crippling fear.
You see, in their animist worldview, everything had a spirit, every rock, every tree, every animal. And here's the kicker. Every single one of those spirits was evil. So their entire existence was just this endless cycle of rituals trying to appease these spirits. They'd paint their bodies red at night, hoping the evil spirits couldn't smell them. In fact, they literally called themselves the dying people because they felt so trapped by fear, tribal wars, and just unbelievably high death rates.
Yeah, 85%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That was the infant mortality rate. And the reason was that if a birth was difficult, they assumed an evil spirit must have been involved. And so out of pure fear, the newborn was often killed. It's a shocking statistic, but it shows you just how deep that culture of fear really went.
But here's another incredible breakthrough. To save a newborn, the father had to perform a very specific action. He had to physically lift the baby up from the ground where it was born. This powerful, existing idea in their own culture became the perfect bridge. The Shan started using this exact word, lifting, to explain the concept of salvation, the idea of being lifted out of darkness by a loving father. It was a concept they could immediately grasp on a really deep level. Their next move was just as smart. They needed a word for God, but the G sound just didn't exist in the local languages. So they created a new word, Khan. It was a sound that meant absolutely nothing to them. This was crucial because it gave them a complete blank slate. They could pour all the meaning of a single benevolent creator into this brand new word without any of the old fearful baggage attached. So years have passed, and just when you think the story can't get any more dramatic, rumors start to surface. Whispers of another group, even more isolated, a nomadic tribe they called the Ikurio, who were supposedly still living in the Stone Age. And this kicked off the final and maybe the most incredible chapter of their story. The legends painted them as these fierce, 10-foot-tall giants, but when expeditions went looking, they found normal-sized footprints and old campsites with wood chips clearly cut by stone axes. So for 3 years, they patiently played this long game. They'd find an abandoned camp and leave gifts, machetes, salt, things the Ikurio couldn't make. When they finally made contact, it wasn't with giants. It was with a small, thin, and very fearful group of people. In the end, they found only 71 individuals left in the entire tribe.
After all 71 Ikurio were brought out of isolation, they heard a truly heartbreaking story. There might be one last family still out there, a mother with her 2 little kids whose husband was now presumed dead. A search party had to go back. They had to try and find them.
And they did find her, but the story she told them was just unbelievable. She said that just days before they arrived, she'd been out digging for food with her children. She looked up, and there it was, a jaguar, crouched low, ready to spring. She knew in that moment, this was it. They were going to die.
But just as the jaguar was about to attack, something impossible happened. A figure, which she described as being dressed all in white, just appeared right between her and the animal. The jaguar got scared and ran off, and then the figure turned to her and spoke to her in her own language. And this is what the figure said. "Don't be afraid, and don't be afraid of the white man who's going to be coming here in 3 days to tell you about me." 3 days later, the search party walked right into her camp, and she was just sitting there, waiting for them.
This whole story is just one of survival against impossible odds, of incredible cultural change, and moments of faith that are really hard to explain. It leaves us with this one big question to think about. What happens when a people who call themselves the dying people are suddenly given a brand new story, a new reason for hope? What becomes possible then?